Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to look at Tang Yuan. It's a food that symbolizes harmony and reunion during the Lantern Festival. The Lantern Festival is the 15th day of the Chinese New Year's and is also the last day of the Chinese New Year celebration. So let's look at this recipe. Now for this recipe we need about 280 grams of glutinous rice flours, and for this recipe we're going to divide it in two batches. We'll also need about half a cup of roasted nuts, in this case peanuts, 140 grams of black sesame seeds, about 140 to 280 grams of sugar depending on your sweetness level, and about 1 or 2 sticks of butter, unsalted, and this all depends on how much sugar you add into your filling. Now for this recipe we're going to lightly roast the black sesame seeds. Now be careful, these seeds do burn easily, so roast them under medium to low temperature till you see a slight smoke appear. Now while the black sesames are roasting, melt your butter under low temperature until they turn liquid. Now using a food processor or blender, go ahead and chop up your peanuts till you get a nice coarse mixture. Well, that's done. After that, you toss in your black sesame seeds and do the same process over again. Now when it comes to the sugar, it's quite subjective on how sweet you want your Tang Yuan to be. For me, I like to start with 1 cup of sugar and gradually add in tablespoons of sugar until I find the right sweetness level depending on the type of people who I'm serving my Tang Yuan to. Older people like less sugar, younger kids like more sugar. And usually for me, I find the sweetness level is between 1 to 2 cups of sugar. So when it comes to the butter, I like to add in batches. I like to add half of it in the beginning and half of it at the end. Now you don't have to necessarily use all 2 sticks of butter. If you want to use less, preferably around like 1.5 sticks of butter, that's perfectly fine for this recipe. Once everything's dissolved in the butter, we're going to transfer it to a non-stick pan. And then we refrigerate it for at least 1 hour, and this will help the butter solidify. This will make it easier to ration out the fillings in portions. So after letting out Tang Yuan paste solidify in the refrigerator after an hour, it should be hard enough to section off. For me, I like to cut it into 6 by 6 blocks, and that should give each Tang Yuan roughly around 7 grams. The whole point of this is to keep our Tang Yuan consistent throughout. After pulling a block out, use your hands and roll up into a ball. And just a precaution warning for this will get messy. If you want, wear gloves for this process. After rolling up all our balls, place it in the refrigerator and let it solidify even more while we work on our dough. So when it comes to working the dough, this dough does dry out. I like to divide it into small batches. For this I like to do 140 grams of glutinous rice and 110 grams of water. This involves hot steaming water and cold water. So to initiate the dough process, I like to add 3 tablespoons of hot boiling water. And that's roughly about 45 grams of water. So after adding your water, grab your trusty chopsticks and give it a good mix. So after adding your hot water, it's time to add your cold water. So add your remaining 65 grams to make a total of 110 grams of water. So grab your trusty chopsticks and give it a good stir. Now after a while you need to get dirty with your hands and to start rolling the ball. And also after a few minutes it should become a nice solid ball. It should be as sticky as a Play-Doh, which is the best analogy I could think of. And just a warning, this does dry out fast, so keep it covered. For the next part, I like to section off the dough into 14 to 15 grams, and that's roughly the size of a Tang Yuan paste ball that we seen earlier. So if the dough does dry out on you, just take a little water and spray on top of it and remix the dough. This dough is very forgiving to work with. So with each glutinous rice balls, what we basically do is flatten it out into a large pie, and be careful if it starts to crack on you, wet it with water and rehydrate it. Once it's thin enough, about like 0.5 millimeters, just wrap it over. Careful not to pull on the dough. You don't want to stretch the dough too thin, it'll break on you. After that, just roll up into a ball. So when it comes to boiling it, we're just basically boiling the Tang Yuan until it starts floating in the water. Now if this is your first time making Tang Yuan, don't be afraid or hard on yourself if it bursts. It happens to everyone. So I hope you enjoyed this video. These Tang Yuans do go by fast. If you found this video interesting and informative, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos from me, hit the subscribe button. If you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions, leave in the section below. Until next time, happy Chinese New Year's.